Welcome to A Matter of Time, a podcast by Tag Heuer. I'm your host, Nicholas Biebeck, Heritage Director at Tag Heuer, and a lifelong fan of fine Swiss watchmaking. In this season, we're discussing the iconic Carrera in its 60th anniversary. We previously spoke about the origins of the model and its relationship with complications in watchmaking, as well as sponsorship and motorsport. For this episode, we're going to look at the Carrera heading in a whole new direction. Whilst it's easy to perceive the model as a design icon, it's also worth remembering that it's frequently been used as a foundation for new technologies. From its inception in 1963, we had the tension ring on the underside of the crystal that improved water resistance. In 1969, it provided the debut for the first automatic chronograph caliber. But it's during in the late 2000s when the Carrera would really hit its stride for true avant-garde watchmaking. As the brand tried to establish a reputation for a true high-end Swiss watchmaking maison, it used the Carrera as the platform for this new initiative. While throughout the 1990s the brand has built itself on accessible luxury Swiss watches, it was under the ownership of LVMH and its new CEO that it really wanted to forge a path into the very upper echelons of the Swiss watchmaking industry. This was achieved with great research and development projects would result in some true technical breakthroughs for the industry. Before we get to the Carrera, it's worth reflecting on the Monaco V4, which is often seen as the archetype of this new initiative. A whole movement driven by belts rather than gears, a mass that ran in a linear direction rather than a rotary fashion, as was more common in the watchmaking industry, and of course the mold-breaking Monaco case. It really looked like nothing else. This philosophy that was established with the V4 would carry forward into a whole range of watches with the Carrera. Whilst many of the pieces didn't wear the Carrera name, it was clear from the case silhouette and the peaked lugs that it was really part of the family. References including the micro timer, the micrograph, the micro girder, the micro tourbillons, the micro pendulum, all formed a complete portfolio of pieces that were priced far above anything that Tag Heuer had offered before and represented a completely new philosophy for the maison. Most curious among these were the high-frequency chronographs, starting with the micrograph at 1/100th of a second, the micro timer at 1/1000th of a second, and then eventually the micro pendulum, which could time to 2/10,000th of a second. These were really true technical tour de forces. Whilst the micrograph and the micro timer used a traditional oscillator, it was the micro pendulum which was most curious, using a blade-like structure to oscillate at an extremely high frequency and drive the central chronograph hand. Really nothing had been achieved like it before. Alongside these high-frequency chronographs, there was also the use of magnetic pinions. Whereas traditionally in the watchmaking industry, the balance is poised on a pinion that is solid and made of steel, Tag Heuer attempted to remove this by mounting the balance on two magnetic pinions, causing it to float. Of course, it had some benefits to it, but as many will know, adding magnets to a mechanical watch movement do introduce a whole host of complications that took a huge amount of effort to resolve. But thanks to Tag Heuer's research and development team, they were able to resolve the vast majority of these. One of the calibers that was developed for the project that has perhaps had the longest lifespan was a movement that included two balances, one at a more traditional frequency of 5 Hz for timekeeping purposes, and one at a much higher frequency to allow for the 1/100th of a second. These movements were also offered in a configuration that had 2 tourbillons and represented the very top tier of what Tag Heuer was producing as far as fine watchmaking was concerned in the early 2010s. For me, it's curious to consider why the brand decided to use the Carrera as the vessel for communicating this new strategy. But upon reflection, it becomes more and more obvious. For a brand so deeply rooted in timekeeping, the Carrera is the archetypal chronograph for the maison and is the obvious flag bearer for such incredible technical innovation. These strategies are continued today with the likes of the Heuer 02 tourbillon movements and of course the new calibers that continue to be developed by the maison. And it's exciting to consider what technical breakthroughs the Carrera could present in the future. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Matter of Time. It's a pleasure to share with you these great stories from the history of Tag Heuer. Please don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to leave a review. We always love to hear your comments. With so many great watches, with so many great stories, it's only a matter of time before we get to the next one.